Welcome to In the Light, Growing Your Soul with me, Anna Isabel, and my fabulous guest today is Felicity Warner. Hello, Felicity.
Hello, Anna Isabel. It's great to see you again.
So the last time that we spoke, we were talking about your work as a soul midwife, and I had no idea that you had written this marvel, Sacred Oils. And one of my students who heard you told me about it. And so here we are talking about, and just before I introduced you and I started recording, I said to you, this is a life-changing book for me because it's teaching me so much about healing. And I'm so excited about it. And I've only started working with 2 oils. So before we go any further, I think we had better start by explaining what are sacred oils.
Well, that's a good question to begin with, certainly. So, in fact, there are several layers to this. But in fact, any oil, and that could be anything from the most costly, incredibly expensive oil to a more familiar oil like olive oil, can actually be termed sacred if it is used in a certain way and used with intention to have a certain outcome. So that is really the basis of the work I do as a myrophore, which is a woman who works with myrrh, which is the name of the lineage really that I'm a part of. And within the lineage itself, there are probably 40 or so actually named sacred oils. But of course, the lineage expands in its work. And so there are other sacred oils that are coming in and being used. But it's really to do with their healing potential, with the intention that they're being used, and a certain way of using them, an etiquette of using them, which is quite a shamanic approach as well. And it's a very healing approach. So I hope that begins to explain it.
It certainly does. So what is a myrophore?
Okay, so a myrophore is, as I was saying, it is a woman who offers myrrh or a mistress of the oils. It actually comes from way back in Greek times. So myrrh was the beginning of the word, and then to offer. Although the lineage, the time part of, is thought to go way back, even possibly before Egyptian times. And it, in those days, was very much a temple practice and a temple tradition. And the women, and it tends still to be mainly women, but not always, we do have some men as well. The women were very practiced in working with not only myrrh, which has its healing properties, but also with these other oils that have the potential to balance and realign our inner core energies, spirit and soul. So myrophore these days is a woman who's working with these sacred oils and also is healing with them. So it's very much a healing tradition.
So it's a practice, a healing practice. And I suspect that it does go back beyond, because the tradition itself, as you describe it, I feel has its roots probably in Egypt, and you know, that's what we know about. There will be the stuff before Egypt that we don't know about. So that, to me, it feels like a very ancient thing. Now, speaking of ancient things, astrology, of course, is also an ancient thing. And I couldn't resist because in your book, you talk about being introduced to this tradition in in Denmark.
Yes.
So the astrologer in me immediately went, oh, well, what's happening in Denmark for Felicity?
Oh, how interesting.
So I had a look at your astrocartography chart, and I discovered that Venus is on the descendant there. So to me, what that means is that that is a place where there's a significant encounter with a woman.
Which is exactly
Yeah.
how I began
Now,
this journey.
it's so, I mean that that's a place where you find love. And in fact, that is where you found love. You found a love, the love of these beautiful oils, and the discipline of how to use them. And it was, of course, a woman who introduced that to you. And the interesting thing as well, and I'm looking at your chart right now, is that Venus in your chart is linked with it's linked, I've lost it, where's it gone? This is the problem of doing it live.
All right, don't rush.
There is a link between Venus and Pluto in your 12th house, the 12th house being linked to all things mystical. And Pluto, you know, wanting to dig into it's about the underworld and wanting to get to the bottom of things. And I think that in your book you talk about how myrophores would have been working with the dying,
Yes.
which is exactly what we would expect a link with Pluto to be doing.
Oh, how interesting. This is fascinating, isn't it? Goodness me. And yes, and so interesting about the fact that it was a woman that introduced me to this. And it was all very sort of quite sort of secretive and quite interesting and quite sort of mysterious in its origins as well. So does that fit in as well with Pluto?
Well, you possibly saw the excited look on my face.
I did glimmer. I saw a glimmer, yes.
Because there is nothing more secretive than Pluto.
Ah, well, there we are.
You know, and it's about going into the underworld. It's secrets, and you know, the 12th house is pretty. I want to say shadowy, but it has connotations that I did not intend. It's the veil, you know.
It's the veil. Yes.
It's the fog. You can't quite see it. You have to find a way to penetrate through the fog, because we are in this dimension, yes, and everything of the 12th is connected with another dimension. So to us, it feels like fog. And so there it is. You are introduced in Denmark to this this other dimension.
Absolutely.
It's reflecting your chart, and so I think that's very beautiful. So I couldn't resist having a look. So coming back to the tradition and the oils themselves, there is a distinct difference between using oils in this context and aromatherapy. So tell us what the difference is.
Yes, it's a huge difference. And I'm always keen to explain that really early on, because you know most people are familiar now with modern aromatherapy. You know, and we can walk into Boots or even Superdrug and buy a bottle of lavender oil. It'll be beautiful, and you know, rub it into the skin or use it in a massage or whatever. And that is wonderful, but that's quite a modern way of working with these very ancient oils. So the difference really is, I think I put it somewhere in the book, perhaps not exactly in this way, but it's a little bit like modern aromatherapy is like painting with some watercolors or making lovely sort of, you know, splashy colors, quite simple. Whereas the sacred oils are really terribly sort of delicate and complex and made up of extraordinary spectrum of frequencies and smell and resonance with certain conditions. They're so sophisticated, and they're being used and offered in service on a very, very high frequency. So in a completely different way to a modern aromatherapy treatment. So for instance, we would never use a sacred oil as a massage, and we would never put it in an oil burner, and we would, you know, never put it in our bath and think, oh, this is lovely. It's not to say that oils aren't marvelous for that, but our way of working is much more to do with the soul. It's much more to do with the depths of people's inner being, and that's the level that we're working at with the sacred oils.
If I may, my interpretation of all of this is that the frequency of the oil is more important in a sense than the physical properties. So if you're using it in a massage, etc., that's fantastic, because that has healing properties in its own right.
Yeah. Yes.
But when we're dealing with them as sacred oils, we are going beyond just the physical side of it and dealing with the frequency of the oil itself. So we're using oil to tune into an aspect of that other world. It's like a portal into another world. And that's, I love it.
You put that beautifully. You put that beautifully. And I'm just thinking back to what you were saying earlier about this, the sort of through the veil and the sort of moving from one dimension to another. That is exactly what these sacred oils help us to do. They help us to step from one dimension through that veil and into another. So it's very, very powerful work, certainly is.
I have the reason I am so excited about discovering this is because it's added another dimension to my meditation practice. And so I am now dedicating I'm dedicating special meditation time to the oils, because what you teach in your book is that we are treating the oils as though they are a consciousness in their own right, which is the shamanic side of the tradition.
Yes.
If we are doing that, it means that the oils are going to guide us and teach us in how they are going to work. And I find that so exciting and so revelatory. And so consequently, I have been using them in my meditation. And I can tell you that it's been astounding. And I've been using it also when I've been doing healing for someone else. And I can see, what I would say is that it enhances the healing. And because okay, so here's what I'm doing. I am initiating the healing with my experience as a hypnotherapist.
Right. Yes.
But the images which I am using to weave as part of the healing for the individual are inspired by the oil itself.
Yes. Yes.
And so then what happens is that the person then has their own experience and vision. And so it feels like there's a three-way conversation going on, that it's inspired by the oil, or it begins with my understanding of what's needed.
Yes.
The bringing in the oil, and then the reaction from the other the other person. So this is turning into an incredibly creative, and the results I'm seeing, you know, as always with healing, it's the best healing happens subtly and deeply.
Yeah.
And
I
that's
couldn't agree more. That's exactly how it is. It's not about fireworks going off and all these. It's subtle and it's deep and it's so transformative for those properties. It's so beautiful the way that works. And I love what you just described, that this is, in a way, it is like a three-way healing conversation. So you have your healer, you have your patient, whatever we like to call them, and the oil is also having the conversation between healer and patient. It's so interesting, and as you said, and this was a very good observation as well, it's very creative. And what often happens is that the person receiving the healing will go on a really interesting, inspiring, extraordinary journey within that healing experience, which is, I think, kind of guided and facilitated by the oil, but so will the healer. And those journeys will always interweave. There will always be this subtle but powerful connection. So it is such an extraordinary process, the whole healing with the sacred oil as almost the facilitator, because the oils do have these consciousness of themselves. They do contain consciousness, and they speak to us in symbols, they speak to us in pictures, they speak to us so beautifully in meditation. And that is exactly how we reach them, is to go into a meditation with them. And then the healing begins. So it's always unpredictable as well. You don't know what's going to actually come until you've started doing the work.
Well, again, as a hypnotherapist, I'm used to that because it's a very creative form of healing, whether I'm doing past life regressions in this lifetime, life between life regressions. It doesn't matter what the work is, or quite simply just doing a very beautiful meditation. It's I never know where I'm going, because firstly, I have to be inspired by the energy in the moment.
Yes.
And secondly, I never know where I'm going because I don't know where my client is going to go either.
Yeah.
And so I'm very used to this very creative way of working. So I absolutely love this, because it's yet another dimension that's guiding me there. So if someone is wanting to explore this world, obviously I would say buy the book, because it's brilliant. That's number one. But what would you say would be a good way to get started?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, again, what I love about working with sacred oils is it doesn't need to be complicated. And I think one of my mantras in the whole of my life is keep it simple. Okay, we're working with a very ancient tradition, and it has its links with, I mean, as you were saying, it has its links actually with astrology and with music and with shapes and sacred geometry. It's all woven in within this tradition. But let's keep it simple, and let's make it something that people could safely experiment with to see if it works with them or not. So what I would really say is firstly, buy the book, not because I'm trying to sell it, but because hopefully it's all laid out in really, really simple ways. So again, there's not sort of cloaked in really arcane language. It's meant to be really grounded. But one of the things I would say is buy a couple of oils, maybe go into a shop where they are selling oils and see what speaks to you. If you've got the book, look at the 20 that I've suggested working with, because they're a really good repertoire, a simple repertoire that do an enormous amount. Even if you only ever stayed with those 20 oils, you have got a lifetime's work and more just contained within the 20. But I would look for an oil that's kind of resonating with me, speaking to me. And literally that can be as simple as picking up a bottle and asking yourself, how am I feeling when I pick this bottle up? And they are subtle but powerful, but sometimes you'll feel a whoosh of energy and think, whoa, that had a connection with me. Or sometimes it might make you feel a bit down. That might be because it's resonating with a soul wound that needs addressing, that could be worked with. Or it could just be that you have a feeling of curiosity feeling a bottle. That would be good enough as well. The oils are quite clever. They do have a way of knocking on your door, certain ones, and saying, it's me you need to be working with. So go with that intuition. And then once you have found an oil you want to work with, I would suggest working with it for 5 minutes every day. No longer than that. 5 minutes will be enough, and just work with that oil in meditation. So get your bottle, have a little bit. Now, this is something just to be cautious with, because all essential oils are very, very strong. You know, they're very concentrated. So I always use a base oil, carrier oil, and I love rapeseed oil, which is quite gloopy and quite thick. And I put a little bit of that on my hand, and then a drop or so of the sacred oil. Maybe just go like this and breathe it in. If I want to have a deeper connection, I might even put some in my heart chakra area. And just do that every day. Close your eyes, focus on your breath, and just have the meditation and see what comes. Ask some questions as well. Now, that is another way of getting the dialogue going with the oil. So ask, do you bring me some knowledge? Do you bring me a gift? Also ask, what do I need to release? And another question would be, do you bring me a symbol? Do you give me something to be working with? Now, you might just ask one of those questions, or you could ask all three. But if you do that every day for a month, you will begin to build up a great picture of all sorts of things that will inform you, may heal you, may be guiding you towards things. And I always suggest that you write this down in a journal. Just journal it. And it doesn't matter how wacky your understanding or your message is. Put it down without even thinking about it too much, because we do overthink. You know, just take the information as it's coming to you on a heart level and write it down. And at the end of the month, look at what has come, and you will be, I think you will be absolutely blown away by the information and the insights and the healing that has come through doing that. So it can be as simple as that. Now, if you really enjoy doing that and find that you have a thirst to know more, I do run introductory days on working with these oils over Zoom, and I'll work with 4 oils in a session, and I have a cycle of 5 of these sessions going on. So I'm just about to have cycle 5 coming up this Saturday, and then in March I start cycle 1 again. So we do 4 oils each time in some depth, I tell you, and the things that happen are just, again, fascinating and extraordinary. So anyone who wants to know more about that can look on my website, which is soulmidwives.co.uk. But these are very very interesting sessions, shall we say. So if anyone's keen, they could always join me with that. But
Well, that'll be me. I'm there.
well,
I
you'd
have
be so
such
welcome.
appetite for this. I want to know more. I want to experience more. you were talking about how you're using them. I haven't even, all I've done is sniff them. Well,
That's a good beginning. That's a good start.
so I guess the question I have, because this is what I find, is that I have found that just beginning to do this, where I'm sniffing the oil and then I start the meditation. And by the way, in your book, you also have suggested meditations for each. And I probably when I first start working with the oil, I probably use that in the first week to week and a half. And then I don't feel like I need to do that anymore.
Yeah,
But
yeah, it's just to get you going.
it's just to get me going, because what it does is it kind of helps me connect with the energy of the oil in its own right. And then it starts to take me places. And all I'm doing is having this little sniff to begin with.
Yeah,
But
yes.
what I found is that it's like it never leaves me. So what I mean is the meditation session ends for that day. But then when I'm doing my regular meditation, which doesn't involve sacred oil, I know it's still there because I'm getting things that are related to it.
Yes, I'm with
So
you.
that's what I found is really, I didn't expect that. It's almost as though it's just, I've opened something.
Yeah.
And it's staying with me. I like that.
Oh, that's amazing. Actually, I have quite a few emails from people who've had exactly that experience, and it is a curious one, how it's as if you're opening something that then enables so much else to come from it. I think what we're partly doing when we're working with the sacred oil is we are becoming a vessel, and we are becoming a vessel to receive awareness, intuition, knowledge, sacred knowledge. And so once you have opened up and you are the vessel, you continue being the vessel in other scenarios as well. So it sort of feeds everything else that we're doing. I mean, I certainly find that working with the sacred oils really, really informs my work with the dying. It just enables me, it gives me tools to work with people on a much, much deeper level than if I was, say, just talking to them. Now, there's nothing wrong with talking, and that can be very powerful, and listening even more powerful. But when I've worked with the sacred oil as well, it opens up so many more levels of awareness, I think, and takes me to much deeper places. So it really, really helps. I think if we're doing any therapeutic work at all, it really helps magnify the possibility and the potential for that.
Well, I can't be any more enthusiastic, I don't think, than I am about this. And for those who want to embark on deeper self-healing, or who are healers already, therapists already, and want to enhance their work, then I think that this is a very exciting way to work. So some people might be listening to us and thinking, it sounds like it could be a bit scary. So is there any danger in working in this way?
No, I mean, it does depend on how you define danger. But what I would say is that the oils have an intelligence, which is a very safe, very sacred intelligence of their own. And I have found that they will always only give you the information that you can manage to work with. They will not give you more than you can ever hold. And part of doing much deeper work with the sacred oils. And I mean, it's taken me years and years and years to be able to work with them at the level I can work with them now, but I was tested all the way through. So there are even, and this may sound a bit weird, but there are a set of initiations that you have to go through. They test you all the time, and if you overreach yourself, you will just be put on a sort of landing for a while, and until you've consolidated things and grown some wisdom to support the awareness they're giving you. So it's very carefully done. The only things that I would suggest to people are that some of the oils have very high frequencies and some of them have low frequencies. So even within themselves, they have a balancing if you work with several of them. And when you're working with a very high frequency oil, it can make you feel slightly woozy and as if you've drunk half a bottle of champagne on an empty stomach. So although that can be a really nice feeling, it might not be what you want in the middle of the day if you've got to go and drive your car. So it does help if you know some of the ways of then safely grounding yourself. So for instance, there's a wonderful oil. It's really one of my favorites. It's called Elemi. I think it's probably my totem oil. It's the one that always comes to mind when I need to be doing particularly sensitive work. It has this very high frequency, so it does have an ability to really raise my energy. And if I then need to really come back down to earth again and lower my vibration, then I'll work with an oil such as patchouli, which is very, very, very grounding. So to have the two oils available to use is useful. But the more you work with the oils, the more you learn how to really ground yourself or elevate yourself, depending on what you need to be doing. So this does come as you do more of the work. But to start with, I would say whenever you've worked with an oil, immediately have a drink of water, get some fresh air, walk around and just limit it to the 5 minutes that we were talking about earlier on in the meditation. Don't do more than that until you've got your stamina and your muscles strong for doing the work. But don't be frightened of them, because they do give you knowledge, I would say, on a need to know basis, and they don't really let you overreach, so you'd be all right.
Felicity, as always, you get me excited and I just feel inspired, and I'm thrilled that we were able to have you on in the lights today.
Oh, well, thank you so much for inviting me. As you can probably tell, I love talking about the oils. Actually, Anna, Isabel, I could just show one of the mandalas.
Of course, yes. Oh, yes, you have beautiful mandalas in the book as well.
Well, I'll just, can you see those, do you think? Yes.
Yes.
One of them, that one is spikenard, which is a very important oil in the repertoire. And this one is violet leaf. I'm just showing them because I am able to see energies. So when I'm working with the oils, I can see the energy pattern, the energy structure they have. And I'm able to get that in my head and then get that down on paper. And again, it's another really useful way of being able to get to link in with the oil. So the meditations and the mandalas really help to, it's like a sort of, yes, opening the portal, I suppose. So they can be really useful in the meditation as well, I think, I hope.
Well, I think everyone needs to, who's interested, needs to explore and discover the way in which they are working. Felicity, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you very, very much for inviting me, and I hope that's been interesting to everybody. I love the way the oils work, and if they can help anybody else, that would be just wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you all for watching. Until next time, goodbye.